My sister-in-law constantly hijacked my events to save cash. I made her cover the cost of my divorce party. What would you do if your sister-in-law, for 5 years, hijacked every single special event in your life? Do you just keep taking it, year after year, letting her stomp all over your boundaries? Or do you plan the most epic, brutal, public revenge imaginable, one that will finally make her pay for everything she's done? Because I chose revenge, and the chaos that followed, well, it was something else entirely. Story begins, my sister-in-law, Tara, was a masterclass in entitlement. 5 agonizing years. She piggybacked on every single event I planned. Every single one. She was too cheap to throw her own parties, even though her husband, Kent, made 6 figures as a pharmaceutical rep, and she was utterly shameless about it. When I threw my daughter's first birthday, a day that should have been all about my sweet baby, Tara announced it was also her dog's birthday. She brought a cake for her poodle, expecting us to sing and take photos. I just stood there, speechless. When I planned my son's baptism, a sacred, quiet moment, Tara decided that was the perfect day to announce her pregnancy. She actually stood up during the ceremony and told everyone her news while the priest was still holding my baby. I thought my head was going to explode. Then I finally finished my master's degree, a huge personal accomplishment, and threw a graduation party. Tara showed up with balloons celebrating her 5-year work anniversary at a job she'd just quit the week before. It was always the same. She'd hijack the photographer I'd hired, the decorations I'd bought, the food I'd ordered, and act like it was always meant to be a joint celebration. The absolute worst part? She never contributed a single penny. But she'd tell everyone she'd helped plan everything. She'd take credit for the venue I'd booked, the menu I'd selected, the entertainment I'd arranged. She'd post photos online thanking everyone for celebrating her special day without mentioning it was actually my event she'd crashed. When I tried to confront her, she'd just turn it around, saying family should share expenses and that I was selfish for not including her. Then she'd cry to Kent, her husband, about how I was excluding her, and he'd call my husband, Alejandro, asking why I was being cruel to his wife. Alejandro, bless his heart, would then ask me to just let Tara join to keep the peace. But there was no peace. There was just me, simmering with resentment. The final straw came with our 10th anniversary party. Alejandro and I had saved for it all year. This was our milestone. But Tara decided, completely on her own, that it was also her and Kent's 8th anniversary, even though their actual anniversary was 3 months away. She contacted our guests, telling them it was a double celebration, and, unbelievably, asked them to bring gifts for her, too. She called the venue and tried to change the menu to include her favorite foods I was allergic to. She ordered a second cake on our account and had them write both names. She even hired a DJ to replace the band I'd painstakingly booked because she preferred dancing to live music. She essentially took over our entire anniversary party and made me pay for all of it. During the toasts, she spoke for 20 minutes about her marriage, while I got 5 minutes before she grabbed the microphone back. That night, something inside me snapped. That's when I started planning my revenge. I knew Tara was getting divorced. Kent had finally gotten tired of her cheapness and entitlement, and he'd already moved out. She'd been desperately hiding it from everyone, pretending everything was perfect, obsessed with maintaining her image. She would need to announce it carefully to control the narrative, to twist it into some heroic tale. And that's when a wicked, brilliant idea sparked in my mind. I decided I would throw myself a divorce party, and I would make Tara pay for all of it. I called Tara, pretending to be utterly distraught, crying crocodile tears, telling her my marriage was over. I said I needed her help planning my divorce party because I was too emotional to do it myself. Oh, the excitement in her voice. She jumped at the chance, thinking she'd get a free party to announce her own divorce, piggybacking on my tragedy. She immediately started telling me what food to order, what decorations to buy, what venue to book. I played along perfectly, telling her she had such better taste than me. I even gave her my credit card, saying I trusted her completely to plan everything. She went insane, booking a country club, ordering top-shelf champagne, hiring a live band, buying designer decorations. She spent $30,000 in 2 weeks, thinking this would be her grand coming-out party as a newly independent woman. She invited all her friends, Kent's family, their entire social circle. She bought herself a new dress and shoes, got her hair and makeup professionally done. She prepared a dramatic speech about finding herself and being stronger alone. The day of the party, she arrived early, glowing with excitement, ready to greet guests and finally announce her divorce, all at my expense. Then my husband Alejandro walked in, looking incredibly handsome in a tux, and I walked in wearing a wedding dress. We announced to everyone that we'd actually been renewing our vows, and we wanted to surprise everyone with a reverse divorce party that was, in fact, a celebration of our marriage. Tara stood there frozen. The air left the room. Her eyes went wide, and her mouth dropped open. The photographer she hired started snapping pictures of Alejandro and me in our wedding clothes. Guests began whispering, pulling out their phones, some confused, others starting to grin as they figured out what was happening. Tara just stood there like a statue, clutching that carefully crafted speech. Her hands were shaking. Her face went from pale to bright red in about 5 seconds. A rush of satisfaction spread through my whole body. For the first time in 5 years, I had finally beaten her at her own game. She couldn't hijack this event because it was never the event she thought it was. The champagne she ordered sparkled in glasses on tables she'd paid for. The designer decorations she'd bought hung from the ceiling. The live band she'd hired was setting up their instruments. Everything she'd spent $30,000 on was now celebrating my marriage instead of her divorce. A few guests started clapping uncertainly, then more joined in. Tara's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. She looked like she was trying to speak, but her brain couldn't form the words. Her prepared speech about divorce and independence was still clutched in her shaking hand, the papers trembling. Alejandro took my hand, squeezing it gently. We walked to the center of the country club ballroom while guests moved aside. The band, her band, started playing our actual wedding song from 10 years ago. I stepped up to the microphone that Tara had set up for her big announcement. I thanked everyone for coming to celebrate such a special occasion with us. I said how touched Alejandro and I were that Tara had put so much effort into planning our vow renewal celebration. I explained that we'd wanted to surprise everyone with this beautiful event, and we were so grateful that Tara had helped make it perfect. The sarcasm in my voice was barely hidden, and I saw some guests trying not to laugh. Others looked genuinely uncomfortable. A few of Kent's family members exchanged glances that said they knew exactly what Tara had been planning to do. I went on about how Tara had such amazing taste in venues and decorations, how she'd thought of every detail, from the champagne to the band to the flowers. I said we couldn't have asked for a better person to plan such an important celebration of our marriage. My voice stayed sweet and grateful, but anyone paying attention could hear the razor-sharp edge underneath. Tara suddenly found her voice. She screamed. "This is my party!" she shrieked, her voice cracking. "You tricked me. I spent $30,000 on what was supposed to be my announcement." Her voice got higher and louder with each word. Several guests gasped at the amount of money she mentioned. Some looked shocked that she'd admit to spending that much. Kent's family exchanged knowing looks. Tara's face was completely red now, tears forming, but they were angry tears, not sad ones. She pointed a shaking finger at me. "You ruined everything. I planned this for weeks. I bought a new dress. I got my hair done. I prepared a whole speech." Her voice cracked again. My friend, Lana, appeared next to me during the chaos. She leaned in close and whispered, "This is the most savage thing I've ever seen. I'm not sure if you're a genius or if you've just started a family war that will last for years. I told her I didn't care anymore. I was tired of being Tara's personal event planner and ATM. I was done letting her take credit for things I'd paid for and planned. Lana just nodded, her eyes wide. She understood. Kent walked through the country club doors right then, looking utterly confused. He saw Tara crying in the corner, while people celebrated what they now understood was a vow renewal. His face went from confused to angry in about 2 seconds. He walked straight over to me, pulling me aside. He demanded to know what I'd done to his wife. His voice was low but intense, right up close to my face. He said Tara had called him crying, but he hadn't understood until now. You humiliated her in front of everyone she knows. Why would you do something so cruel? I explained calmly, though my heart was pounding, how Tara had spent 5 years hijacking every single one of my events. The baptism announcement, the graduation party, the 10th anniversary party, where she'd taken over everything and made me pay for it all. I said I'd simply let her plan one more event, except this time she paid for it herself. Kent's face went even redder. He started yelling that I was cruel and vindictive, that Tara was going through a difficult divorce, and I'd picked the worst possible time to humiliate her. Alejandro stepped between us. He told Kent that his wife had been financially and emotionally using us for years. He said we were done letting her take advantage. His voice was firm, positioned protectively in front of me. The confrontation drew more attention. More phones came out. Tara stormed over, her makeup smeared, and threw her prepared divorce speech at me. The papers hit my chest and fell to the floor. You manipulative B*TCH, she shrieked. You ruined the one thing I needed to maintain my dignity. She'd written 3 full pages about her journey to independence, with notes in the margins about where to pause for effect. Now, those pages were crumpled and torn on the floor of a party that was supposed to be hers, but wasn't. The party continued in this weird, awkward way. Half the guests tried to celebrate our vow renewal. The other half either comforted Tara or whispered about the drama. The band kept playing. Everything Tara had planned was happening exactly as she'd imagined, except it was celebrating the opposite of what she'd wanted. I saw her looking around with this expression of complete shock and betrayal. She'd spent $30,000 making it perfect, and now it was used against her in the worst possible way. Lana grabbed my arm and pulled me into the bathroom. Her face was tight with concern. Do you understand what you've just done? You humiliated her in front of everyone she knows, she whispered. I leaned against the sink. She humiliated me at my son's baptism. She humiliated me at my anniversary party. Lana admitted she remembered those incidents, but said this felt different because it was so public and planned. I said Tara had never apologized, never saw anything wrong with her behavior. Lana sighed. The fallout is going to be huge, she warned. I shrugged. The fallout had been building for 5 years. Maybe it was time for everything to explode. When I returned, Alejandro's mother was crying, asking him how he could let me do something so cruel. He explained that his mother had enabled Tara for years by always asking us to be the bigger people. He listed specific examples of Tara's behavior. His mother, without responding, walked away, looking uncomfortable and angry. The photographer, nervously, asked if she should still take formal photos. I told her to take the vow renewal photos we had planned. We were paying her regardless. Tara and Kent left about 20 minutes later, Tara sobbing. About a third of the guests followed. The country club ballroom suddenly felt much emptier. The remaining guests seemed to relax. Conversations grew louder, more natural. Some people came up to me privately. Someone needed to teach Tara a lesson, one cousin said. A neighbor admitted he'd always thought Tara was taking advantage. McKenna said Tara's entitlement had been getting worse, and she'd started hijacking other people's events, not just mine. I felt this weird mix of validation and guilt hearing all these confessions. We completed our vow renewal ceremony with just the people who stayed. It turned out to be actually beautiful despite all the chaos. The band played our wedding song. Alejandro took my hands, his eyes wet, his voice steady as he promised to love me for another 10 years and beyond. Tears ran down my face as I made the same promises. We danced, and for a few hours I felt vindicated and happy. We'd reclaimed our celebration from Tara's manipulation. The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing constantly. 17 missed calls. A group text from 6 a.m. Kent's brother, Kirk, was calling me every name imaginable, demanding an apology. Alejandro's phone buzzed too. His mother texted, saying she was ashamed. His sister sent a long paragraph about disappointment. Even friends who hadn't been there were texting, seeing posts on social media. Lana showed up with coffee and bagels. She listened carefully, then admitted Tara deserved consequences. But the public humiliation might have been too far. She asked if I'd considered how devastating it must have been for Tara. I defended myself, reminding her how Tara had humiliated me without remorse. Lana nodded, but said she was worried about the family explosion. I felt the first real stirrings of doubt. My mother called, crying, asking how I could do something so mean, especially to someone going through a divorce. I tried to explain the 5 years of hijacked events, but she cut me off. 2 wrongs don't make a right. You should have been the bigger person. My anger flared. Why was I always expected to sacrifice my feelings to keep peace with someone who showed me no respect? She just said, that's what family does. They forgive and move forward. I hung up. Alejandro and I had our first real fight about it. Later that afternoon, he admitted he felt guilty about the public humiliation. Tara deserved consequences, but maybe we went too far with the public spectacle. I accused him of backing down now that his family was angry, reminding him he'd helped execute the plan. He said he hadn't fully considered how brutal the public reveal would be. He felt bad watching her cry, and seeing his mother's disappointment made him question it. I felt betrayed. Do you regret marrying someone who wouldn't just roll over and let your family take advantage? He looked red, said that wasn't fair. We stood in tense silence until he left the room. Later, Kent showed up. He demanded we pay Tara back the $30,000 she spent on our stolen party. Alejandro, calmer now, told Kent that Tara made her own choices about spending. Kent's voice grew louder, insisting we'd tricked her and owed her money, plus damages for the humiliation. I came down the stairs. Tara never contributed to my events for 5 years. I don't owe her anything. Kent started listing all the ways his family had supported me, as if that justified Tara's behavior. Alejandro stepped between us, telling Kent to leave. The next morning, an email from Tara. Everything you've done to me. 12 paragraphs detailing every perceived wrong, claiming I'd always been jealous, trying to push her out of family gatherings. She genuinely seemed to believe I was the problem. I drafted a furious response, then deleted it. Nothing I said would change her mind. My phone buzzed with texts from mutual friends, seeing her vague social media posts about betrayal and fake family members. I wanted to post the truth, but Lana convinced me not to escalate it publicly. I sent private messages instead, explaining the pattern. Most responded, that makes so much sense now. My daughter, Clementine, then 6, asked why Aunt Tara was crying in all her social media posts. She asked if it was because of our party, if Aunt Tara was mad we got married again. She even asked if she was at fault because of her first birthday party when Tara brought the dog cake. My heart broke. I told her none of this was her fault. She asked if I was the bad guy or if Aunt Tara was the bad guy like in her cartoons. I struggled. I settled on, sometimes people make mistakes and hurt each other without meaning to, and we all have to figure out how to fix it. She seemed satisfied, but I felt awful that our family drama was affecting her. Alejandro's mother invited us to Sunday dinner. It was an ambush. Kent's family barely spoke to us. His mother asked if I felt good about what I'd done. I explained the 5-year pattern. She asked if that justified publicly humiliating Tara. Kent's sister said there was a difference between thoughtless and deliberately cruel. My face got hot. I reminded them about Tara humiliating me at my son's baptism. I asked where all this concern about cruelty was back then. Alejandro put his hand on my arm, but I kept going, listing every event, every dollar, every time the family asked me to let it go. The table went quiet. We left early, sat in the car for 20 minutes in silence. The next few days, I watched posts from the party go viral, videos of Tara's face, captions about manipulation or cruel revenge. Our family drama turned into entertainment for strangers. I wanted to scream, but Alejandro convinced me not to engage. Tara called, screaming, "You ruined my reputation. I'm a laughingstock." I tried to bring up her years of hijacking, but she just yelled over me. She hung up. I sat there, a mix of satisfaction and guilt. Alejandro brought me coffee in bed. He admitted his family was pressuring him to get me to apologize. Maybe just for the public humiliation part, he suggested. I stared at him. After everything Tara did? He admitted he didn't realize how bad the family fallout would be. I asked if keeping peace with his family was more important than my boundaries. He looked miserable. My best friend from college called. She'd seen the videos. I explained everything. She said it was savage but kind of brilliant. She asked if I went too far, if it felt as good as I'd hoped. I admitted it felt good in the moment, but now everything was complicated. She didn't give me a clear answer about right or wrong, but said sometimes there's no perfect way to handle years of boundary violations. 2 weeks later, Kent's mother called, asking if I'd meet Tara privately. I laughed, almost said no, but her voice was tired. She said Tara had been asking. We picked a coffee shop. Tara walked in, looking different. No makeup, hair in a messy ponytail, plain clothes. She ordered something complicated and sat down across from me. She said she'd been thinking a lot about why I felt the need to humiliate her. I braced myself, but her voice stayed level. She said she understood now that the party wasn't just about revenge. It was about 5 years of feeling used and disrespected. I sat there, stunned. She admitted she knew she was taking advantage, but had convinced herself it was just being smart with money. When I asked how she could think I didn't mind when I'd confronted her, she looked genuinely surprised. I explained how violated I felt every time she hijacked something I'd planned and paid for. How angry it made me when she took credit. How hurt I was that she never asked permission or offered to contribute. Her face did something weird, like she was actually processing what I was saying. She admitted she thought I was being dramatic when I complained. I felt my anger rising again, but then Tara stopped mid-sentence. She put her face in her hands. When she looked up, her eyes were red. She said the divorce had been harder than she expected. She'd relied on Kent for everything. Being forced to face the party humiliation alone made her realize how much she used other people as shields. Seeing everyone at the party realize what she'd done, their faces changing from supportive to judging, made her understand how her behavior affected people. I sat there, not knowing what to say. This was the most honest Tara had been in all the years I'd known her. Part of me wanted to stay angry, but another part felt tired of carrying all that rage. I told her, cautiously, that the revenge didn't feel as satisfying as I thought it would. That watching her face crumble actually made me feel kind of sick. I admitted the family division had been harder than I expected. We weren't anywhere close to apologizing to each other, and I wasn't ready to forgive 5 years of selfish behavior just because she finally acknowledged it. But sitting there in that generic coffee shop, we both agreed that permanently destroying family relationships over parties and revenge seemed wasteful. Tara suggested we try to find some way forward that included actual boundaries about events and money. I agreed, but told her explicitly and clearly that I would never plan or fund another event she wanted to attend without her contributing equally and asking permission first. She nodded. That seems fair, she said. We left without hugging or big dramatic declarations, just an agreement to try. 3 weeks later, Alejandro's mother hosted a family dinner. Tara arrived late, sat at the opposite end of the table. We made polite, small talk, carefully avoiding conflict. Nobody brought up the party or the divorce. We maintained our distance. Nobody stormed out. That felt like progress. When Clementine's 7th birthday approached, I planned a small party at our house. Alejandro asked if we should invite Tara. My stomach tightened, but I told her we'd work towards civil interactions. Avoiding her at my daughter's birthday seemed petty. I said yes, but made it clear to Alejandro there would be no surprise announcements or piggybacking. I texted Tara, reminding her about the time and asking her not to bring anything except herself. She responded with a thumbs-up emoji. The morning of the party, my stomach was in knots, but Tara showed up exactly on time, carrying a wrapped present that looked normal. She handed it to Clementine with a smile that seemed genuine if strained. She stayed near the edges of conversations. She ate cake, sang happy birthday without making announcements. I watched her constantly, waiting for the other shoe to drop, but it never did. After exactly 2 hours, she found me in the kitchen and said she needed to head out, thanking me for inviting her. We stood awkwardly for a second. Then she left without trying to hug me. Kirk, Kent's brother, apologized for his angry texts. He admitted he'd only heard Tara's version. He said he'd noticed Tara could be entitled, but never realized how bad it had gotten. He said family dynamics were complicated, but he didn't think I was a monster. Alejandro's mother also pulled me aside. She thanked me for being willing to move forward with Tara. She admitted she should have addressed Tara's behavior years ago. Tears pricked my eyes. I'd waited 5 years for someone in the family to acknowledge that I wasn't the problem. She hugged me and said she was proud of how I'd handled the aftermath. 3 months passed. Kent called Alejandro. The divorce was finalized. Alejandro asked how Tara was handling it. Kent said she'd been calling people individually to let them know, rather than making a big announcement. Something shifted in my chest. Tara had actually changed. She wasn't hijacking an event. She was handling her own life quietly with dignity. I sent her a brief text, wishing her well. Her response was less hostile than usual. I ran into Shri at the grocery store. She admitted she'd been caught off guard by the public humiliation, but understood why I was fed up. She said watching Tara over the past few months had made her realize how entitled Tara could be. We exchanged numbers, promising coffee. I felt lighter. Tara called me directly 2 months after that. She'd gotten a new job, relocating 2 hours away. Part of me felt relief at the physical distance. Another part recognized she was genuinely trying to rebuild her life. I congratulated her. We talked for 15 minutes. It felt almost normal. Thanksgiving came. Tara joined via video call. She looked more confident, less desperate for attention. When we said what we were grateful for, Tara said she was grateful for the chance to start over and for family who was willing to give her space to grow. I said I was grateful for boundaries and second chances. We made eye contact through the screen. Lana came over for coffee. She was impressed by how I'd handled the aftermath. I admitted it had been harder than just staying angry. Staying angry was simple. Rebuilding a working relationship with Tara, with boundaries, required constant effort and uncomfortable conversations. Lana said that's what made it impressive. Christmas approached. Tara sent a text asking if she could stay with us for 2 nights. I stared at my phone. Part of me wanted to say no, it felt too soon. But we'd been working towards civility. Refusing felt petty. I said yes, but sent clear house rules about respecting our space and schedule. She agreed immediately. Tara arrived. She followed all the rules. She offered to help. She played with the kids. On Christmas Eve, after the kids were in bed, Tara and I ended up sitting in the living room, drinking tea. She started talking about therapy, how she'd been working to understand her entitlement issues. She said her therapist had helped her see why she felt entitled to other people's events and money, and how that had damaged her relationships. I listened. Then I shared that I'd also been thinking a lot about whether public humiliation was the right approach. I admitted the revenge had felt satisfying in the moment, but the aftermath had been harder than I expected. We sat there in the glow of the Christmas tree lights, having the most honest conversation we'd ever had. We didn't apologize, didn't declare everything forgiven, but we acknowledged we'd both made mistakes. We didn't become close friends, but we settled into something that worked better. She stopped showing up expecting to take over. I stopped expecting her to change into someone completely different. When we saw each other at family gatherings, we made conversation about normal things. The conversation stayed surface level, but it was genuine instead of fake. Neither of us pretended we'd forgotten what happened. We just accepted that some family relationships function better with distance and clear rules. Alejandro's mother stopped giving me guilt trips. Kirk stopped sending angry texts. The whole family seemed relieved. Our actual 11th anniversary rolled around. Alejandro and I skipped the big party. We got a babysitter, went to a quiet Italian restaurant. We talked about how weird the past year had been. Alejandro admitted he still felt guilty sometimes about the public humiliation. I said I understood, but I didn't regret making her face what she'd been doing to us. We agreed the revenge had solved the immediate problem, but created months of tension. Next time, he said, maybe we could try talking first before jumping straight to elaborate revenge schemes. I laughed and promised I'd consider it. We held hands, talking about a real vacation for our next anniversary. Something just for us. A full year passed after the fake divorce party. Our family found a rhythm that actually worked. Tara lived 2 hours away, came back for major holidays. She was building her own life, not borrowing pieces of everyone else's. I stopped feeling angry and resentful. We weren't warm or affectionate, but we could sit at the same Thanksgiving table without tension. Our relationship wasn't the close sisterly bond some families have, but it was honest and it didn't drain either of us emotionally. Sometimes that's the best you can do with family, and that has to be good enough. So that's my story. What a ride, right? It was messy, complicated, and I definitely learned a lot about boundaries and the cost of revenge. Have you ever reached a breaking point with a difficult family member and had to take drastic measures? Or found a way to navigate those complex relationships without completely losing your mind? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I'm curious to hear your experiences.